Welcome to CultureAlley Mandarin. Ni hao. This is Basic Mandarin Lesson 20. Let's begin by reviewing some of the phrases that we learned in the last lesson. A little translates as 一点儿, while can or be able to becomes 会. To say or speak translates as 说, while understand becomes 懂. Similarly, listen translates as 听. And finally, once translates as 一遍. Great! Now let's look at a few more. I can speak a little Mandarin translates as 我会说一点中文. While can you speak English becomes 你会说英文吗? Sorry, I don't understand translates as 对不起，我听不懂. And finally, please say it again becomes 请再说一遍. Great! Let's move on to today's lesson. Today's lesson deals with bridging the language barrier between two people who speak different languages. Today we will cover questions like, what does this mean? Or, how do you say that in Mandarin? Let's begin by asking some simple questions like, what does a phrase mean in Mandarin? Here's a quick grammar tip for you. How do you say blank in Mandarin is roughly translated as, how do I use Mandarin to say that? Or literally as, use Mandarin how speak. Great! Now let's look at the vocabulary required to say this sentence. The word use or function translates as 用, which is pronounced using a falling tone. How translates as 怎么 and is pronounced with a falling rising tone. Other words used in this sentence include Mandarin or 中文 and say, which becomes 说. Great! Now let's look at the breakup of use Mandarin how speak. We start with the phrase or word we want to ask, followed by the word use, which translates as 用. Mandarin gets translated as 中文, how as 怎么, and finally speak becomes 说. Thus, how to say blank in Mandarin translates to 用中文怎么说, literally implying use Mandarin how speak. Let's understand this by taking an example. Let's learn how to say book in Mandarin, which literally becomes book use Mandarin how speak. Thus, how to say book in Mandarin translates as book 用中文怎么说, literally implying book use Mandarin how speak. Note that book translates as 书 in Mandarin. Great! Another way to say, how do I say blank in Mandarin is how say in Mandarin, where in is represented by the particle de. Let's look at the breakup. Taking a look at the breakup, we see that phrase remains as it is. How becomes 怎么. Say translates as 说. In is replaced by the particle de, and Mandarin becomes 中文. Thus, how to say blank in Mandarin may also be translated as 怎么说的中文 literally meaning how speak Mandarin. Good! Let's learn by taking an example. How do I say good morning in Mandarin will literally become good morning how speak in Mandarin. Thus, how to say good morning in Mandarin becomes good morning 怎么说的中文 Note that good morning translates as 早安 in Mandarin. Alright, it's quiz time now. Let's see if you remember what we've covered till now. What does blank 怎么说的中文 mean in English? Does it mean blank is what in Mandarin? Or is it how to say blank in Mandarin? Or does it become what is blank in Mandarin? Blank 怎么说的中文 literally means how to say blank in Mandarin. What does 用 translate as in Mandarin? Does it mean use or function? Or could it mean say or speak? Use or function is the correct translation of the word 用. Great! Now let's move on to some more sentences. Let's learn how to say, what does this mean? Which literally translates as, this is what meaning. Here's the vocabulary for the same. This translates as 这 and is pronounced with a falling tone. Also recall that 意思 from 不好意思 implies meaning and 什么 means what. Alright, now let's look at the breakup. This translates as 这 while is becomes 是. What translates as 什么 and meaning translates as 意思. Putting it all together, what does this mean translates as 这是什么意思 literally implying this is what meaning. Here's another one. Please speak a little slower. This literally becomes please speak slow a little in Mandarin. Here's the vocabulary for the same. Slow translates as 慢, which is pronounced using a falling tone. Once again, it is 慢. Great! Note that 1 and have the same translation in Mandarin, that is, 一. Great! Now let's look at the breakup of please speak slow a little. Please translates as 请, while speak becomes 说. Slow translates as 慢, and a little becomes 一点. Putting it all together, please speak a little slow becomes 请说慢一点. Literally meaning, please speak slow a little. Once again, it's quiz time. Let's see if you can recall all that we've learned today. What does little translate to? Does it become 请? Or is it 点? Or is it 慢? Little translates as 点. Hope you got that one right. What does 这是什么意思 translate as? Does it become what does this mean? Or is it what does this name mean? 这是什么意思 is a translation for what does this mean? What does man translate to? Does it mean slow, or please, or a little? The correct translation of man is slow. Great! That finishes our lesson for the day. Let's have a quick conversation between Mark and Lisa to review what we've learned in the last 2 lessons. Let's first have the conversation in English, followed by Mandarin. Can you speak Mandarin?
Yes, I can.
I can speak a little Mandarin.
Good. What is your name?
Sorry, I don't understand. Please say it again.
What is your name?
I'm called Mark. All right, now let's look at this conversation in Mandarin. 你会说中文吗？
会。
我会说一点中文。
好，你叫什么名字？
对不起，我听不懂，请再说一遍。
你叫什么名字？
我叫 Mark. Great! Let's move on to the next set of the conversation. Once again, first in English, followed by Mandarin. What is your name?
My name is Lisa.
How to say home in Mandarin.
Home.
Now let's look at it in Mandarin. 你叫什么名字？
我叫 Lisa.
Home 用中文怎么说？
家。
Excellent! Let's move on to today's review. Let's begin by reviewing a few phrases we learned today. Use or function becomes 用, while how becomes 怎么. This translates as 这, and meaning becomes 意思. Lastly, what translates as 什么. Good! Let's look at some phrases we learned today. I can speak a little Mandarin becomes 我会说一点中文. While can you speak English translates to 你会说英文吗? Sorry, I don't understand becomes 对不起，我听不懂. And please say it again translates as 请再说一遍. How do I say blank in Mandarin? Becomes 用中文怎么说? While how do I say good morning in Mandarin translates as good morning, 怎么说的中文? What does this mean? Literally translates as 这是什么意思? And lastly, please speak a little slower becomes 请说慢一点儿. Wonderful! Now it's time for the culture leaf of the day. Today, we will talk about mythology and spirituality in the Chinese culture. A large part of Chinese culture is based on the notion that a spiritual world exists. Countless methods of divination have helped answer questions, even serving as an alternative to medicine. Chinese religion was originally oriented to worship the supreme god Shangdi during the Xia and Shang dynasties, with the king and diviners acting as priests. While many deities are part of the tradition, some of the most recognized holy figures include Guan Yin, Jade Emperor, and Buddha. Here you see A. Luohan, one of the spiritual figures of Chinese Buddhism. In the next lesson, we shall learn about describing other people. Hope you enjoyed your lesson today. See you at the alley for the next one.